Hello. Today we are going to start TDD workflow in with JavaScript with Angular, and it's more correctly would be to say it's BDD because it is behavior-driven development. It's superset of TDD, and the main principle is that first of all you create all the functionality that your method or set of methods should have, and then you split this functionality for separate unit test, and when you are inside of specific unit test, this is your in TDD. So BDD, this is just several TDD approaches with unit test. So I would like to say that it's pretty painful experience to set everything up in Visual Studio to work with it, to work with Jasmine, and it took a pretty significant amount of time. But whatever I read in tutorials and forums doesn't work. I apologize. Doesn't work. So for example, Karma doesn't work inside of Visual Studio. Chatpass work only if you have all the inclusions, so it doesn't read a system file. But we figured out that the method that works is just running Jasmine spec runner like a separate controller, and then you can from browser work with your test. I will not type on this tutorial, and this tutorial is going to be short. I hope so. And now we're going to show how to create a test. They are already created and controller created, but I will go through, just do not waste time on typing. So first of all, I created in a script folder, I created such structure that I have the folder up, and also on the same level I have test, and up contains up.ts. This is a main file where we register our module, and also we define our routes. And then in controllers we just include our controller like it should be. So let me just turn off the mouse because it's pretty painful experience. Okay. So I register my it's not registering here because I'm going to create an index controller, and in index controller this is a default controller, and if we take a look at index HTML in messages, you can see that I have here ngView, div with ngView, and this div will be replaced with our view. But everything, so in here this is UL with navigation, and this is like will be inbox, outbox, and so forth, and everything is included and with div, and it has a directive ng controller is index controller. So we created in such a way in order all internal pages, all internal controllers which will be responsible for replacing ngView, they have access to index controller. Then in that case we can pass our scope object, and that's called scope object would be able to pass data between our application. So it's not the only design pattern. There are other people considers that one is a little bit tightly coupled, but I think that it's pretty abstract. Okay, so I created a folder, created a URL with nghref, and it reference to the root. And root of our application, this is messages inbox, and this pound sign which Angular by default added in order to specify its own root. So then we go to our test, and our test is called index controller spec, and spec, this is a default name of test in BDD. So like in Jasmine, like in our previous tutorials, I have described, and the first parameter is I specify what I'm going to describe, and the second parameter functions which will serve like a wrapper for all our it, and it is a block that has our assert, or in this case expect. Then I need to specify two functions. So one of them is scope, and another one is HTTP backend, and this is a variable that will contain our scope and also HTTP backend. Scope, this is we will create, or not we will inject in the next method before each. We will inject root scope, and this is an object that will mock our scope, and we need our scope in order to create our controller, because if you take a look at the function index controller, it accepts scope. So in order to create this function, we need to create a scope and give it to the object. And the second inject, this is a controller. This is Angular controller which will create our controllers. And HTTP backend, this is also Angular method. And pay attention please that all by convention all Angular classes are preceded with $, and if you create your own variables, you shouldn't use $. So this is just a convention. You can follow it, you can violate it. It will only be compiled mistake, but you will just create your maintainability much more difficult. So first of all, in our inject, I create an HTTP backend, and I instantiated this variable and set the variable that will be injected by Angular. And this is similar, like we have a method and we have a field, and then in constructor we set this field, and we do it just because in order to increase its scope. So it means that if I create variable before each method, I can use it in whole describe, and this is what happened in there. I also create a scope, and scope I created this root scope new, and if you need more information about it, you can specify parameters, but Angular docs contain pretty detailed instructions how to do it. After we have and I forgot to say that HTTP backend, this is mock HTTP mock for doing this HTTP request, because unit tests they have to be completely separated, and if your controller makes an HTTP request, in your test you shouldn't do a real HTTP request, because let's assume that you have thousands of tests, and if your internet connection doesn't work, it means all of them are failed, not because their functionality, but because they depend on this HTTP request over the network, and this is violation of single responsibility of unit test. So that's why we need to mock it. And after I created a controller and provided its scope, then I can, if we create our controller, we need to check whether or not it make a request to the get method, get all messages for a specific user. And this is always our test, so we expect that our scope messages to be defined. So it means that our method will make a get request, and in success, if it gets a request from a response from a server with array of messages, it will define them on scope. So we have our test here, and now we can go to our index controllers folder. Yeah, everything, it's pretty easy method. So the only issue that I'm using here get logged user name function, and this function is defined. I created folder util, and in util I will have all the helper function, which helps me to like do action that I need to do. In order to get messages, we need for whom get messages, and this function, this is just pure jQuery function, which gets a div where the username is shown, and if user logged in, it will return like user1@gmail.com or whatever username is, and if it's not logged in, it will return null if, for example, we don't have that div. And that's it. And I make a request with HTTP get, and this will be URL, and the second parameter I have username, and username this will be text variable, and it will make a request to our MVC method. It's called get received. Provided username, and it just queried the database with our Reaper containers and return JSON. And also pay attention that whenever you return JSON, by default you have specified that you need to, the second parameter, allow get request, otherwise it will generate a mistake. So this is a workflow, and it's not so if you are going to replicate this, make sure that you plan enough time. It's considered not very complicated, but it took at least 2 days for me to set everything and achieve this result, but hope that it will be faster in the future. Thank you, bye.